It was late into the night, but President Ibrahim Traoré was still at his desk. His office buzzed with tension. Phones were ringing non-stop. Key government figures, including the head of the central bank and the economy minister, had gathered for an emergency meeting. A chilling message flashed across the news screen. French banks had frozen all money transfers to Burkina Faso. The IMF had put loan payments on hold. The CFA franc, the country's official currency, was being pulled from circulation. Burkina Faso stood at the edge of a financial cliff. Traoré struck the table with his fist. "This is how they've controlled us for decades," he said, his voice sharp. "Even our own currency isn't ours." He turned to his stunned team and laid out a plan, so daring it left the room in silence. "We can't do this," the finance minister finally said. "It's never been done before." "Then we'll be the first," Traoré replied, a quiet defiance in his voice. Outside, the city of Ouagadougou shimmered under the night sky. Inside, the nation's future hung in the balance. Traoré stood by the window, hands behind his back, eyes lost in thought. "How much do we have in reserves?" he asked. Dr. Amina Konate, head of the central bank, flipped through her documents. "Officially, $400 million, but most of it is in Paris. We can't access it." "And our gold?" he asked. 78 tons, she said, hesitating. "But it's in France," Traoré finished for her, bitterness creeping into his smile. The economy minister, Ousmane Sonko, shifted uneasily. "You're seriously considering leaving the West African Economic Union? Rejecting the CFA franc? That's economic suicide." "Suicide?" Traoré turned, his eyes blazing. "Or is it freedom? How can we call ourselves sovereign when we don't even print our own money?" Sonko gestured helplessly. "Other African countries use this system. Mali, Niger, Senegal. And they're still poor," Traoré shot back. "Because every time we print a note, we're forced to deposit the equivalent in dollars into the French treasury. We're paying to use our own currency. How is that independence?" The room fell quiet. Everyone knew he was right. But the system had been in place for 70 years. Colonial rule had ended on paper, but the real control had never left Paris. Dr. Konate took a deep breath. "Mr. President, you speak the truth, but we lack the tools to create a new currency. No printing presses, no financial infrastructure, and if people rush to withdraw money in the morning..." Traoré calmly placed a thick file on the table. "That's why I've been quietly preparing for 3 months. This is Operation Sankara, Thomas Sankra's unfinished mission, financial freedom." He opened the file. Inside were blueprints and economic strategies. Everyone leaned forward. In the center, a plan to replace the CFA franc with a new national currency, the Burkina gold. "This is madness," the finance minister stammered. "We don't have the reserves. No international body will support this." Traoré reached into his pocket and pulled out a small gleaming coin. One side showed a baobab tree, the other, the map of Burkina Faso. "This is the prototype," he said, "made entirely from our own gold, mined and refined right here on Burkinabe soil." Dr. Konate looked shocked. "But foreign companies control our mines. They monitor everything." "Not anymore," said Traoré, his tone cold. The economy minister stood up abruptly. "You nationalize the mines?" "Officially, that happens tomorrow morning," Traoré replied. "But the army began the operation 3 hours ago. All gold mines are now under our control. Executives from foreign companies are being escorted out of the country." Stunned silence filled the room. The move was risky, bold, even dangerous, but it was also brilliant. "What about retaliation?" asked Dr. Konate. "Sanctions? Boycotts? They'll try." Traoré nodded. "But they'll have to find us first." He pressed a button and a world map lit up on the screen. Certain countries were highlighted: Russia, China, India, Turkey, Iran, Brazil. "For the past 6 months, we've signed confidential agreements with these nations. We'll trade directly using their currencies. No dollars, no euros. Our gold for their technology and goods." The economy minister's hands trembled. "Why didn't you tell me?" "You didn't need to know," Traoré answered gently. "If French intelligence caught wind of this, we'd have been blocked long before now." Dr. Konate picked up the coin and studied it. "It's beautiful," she whispered, "but will the people accept it?" "They already trust gold," Traoré replied. "They've been saving it in jewelry and under mattresses for years. We're just giving them something better, real value." He opened a second file, this one full of images and app designs. "This is the Burkina digital wallet," he said, "a free mobile app for every citizen, gold-backed, transparent, secure, and outside the Western financial system." The finance minister stared. "This is insane, and yet it might just work. But how will we convince the people?" At that moment, Traoré's assistant stepped in. "Sir, the connection is ready." Traoré turned to his team. "Don't worry, we'll show them." A large screen lit up, showing the faces of leaders from 5 neighboring nations: Mali, Niger, Guinea, Togo, and Benin. "I think we've all received the same message tonight," Traoré said to them. "The West is waging financial war again, but this time, we're ready." By the end of the 2-hour meeting, fear had given way to resolve. There was a new energy in the room. As dawn broke, Traoré looked around. "A new day is coming, not just for us, for all of Africa." Dr. Konate asked, "Shall we announce it to the people tomorrow morning?" Traoré shook his head. We do it now, before they head to the banks. They should feel pride, not panic." An emergency broadcast was arranged. Minutes later, Traoré stood before the nation, dressed in his military uniform. His voice was calm, but firm. "People of Burkina Faso," he began, "last night Western banks cut us off. They froze our money, canceled our loans, and thought we would crumble. Across homes, shops, and streets, people listened closely. They did this because we asked for our freedom, because we said our resources belong to our people." He held up the coin. "From this moment, we no longer use the colonial CFA franc. We now have our own currency, Burkina gold, backed by 100% local gold." Then he raised his phone. "This is the Burkina digital wallet. It will be given to every citizen free. You won't need banks anymore. Your money will be safe, in your hands." The nation watched in awe. Some were unsure, others deeply moved. Traoré continued, "All CFA franc accounts will be converted to Burkina gold, at double the value. No one will lose. Everyone will gain." Gasps and quiet cheers spread across the country. "But the greatest victory," he said, "is that we will finally control our own money, our own future, and we're not alone." The screen split to show the other African presidents, all standing with him, all ready to drop the CFA franc on the same day, each country launching its own gold-backed currency. "This is not a revolution," Traoré said. "It's evolution. And now, we are truly free." As his speech ended, something remarkable happened. There were no bank runs. Instead, people began downloading the Burkina digital wallet. It was easy to use, beautifully designed, and most importantly, it felt like it belonged to them. Meanwhile, in Paris, panic hit the French central bank. The Africa desk executive stared at the data in disbelief. "6 countries just pulled out," he said, trembling. This was coordinated. And so, the world changed, quietly, boldly, and in gold. "What else?" snapped the bank president, clearly agitated. His assistant replied, "The digital wallets. They've already been downloaded millions of times. People are actually using them. There's no chaos, no panic, no rush to withdraw money." The president, stunned, reached for his phone. "I need to speak to the finance ministry immediately." "It's already calling," the assistant said, handing him the phone. On the other end, a nervous voice delivered devastating news. "The mines are gone. Our military base agreements are being canceled. Our energy partnerships in the region are collapsing. West Africa, it's slipping from our control." Back in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré sat silently in his office, watching the world respond. Western media painted grim headlines. Africa collapses, Traoré dooms his people, economic suicide in West Africa. But something else was happening too, something no one expected. Countries like Russia, China, India, Brazil, Turkey, and South Africa were sending messages of support. They congratulated Burkina Faso and expressed interest in using and recognizing its gold-backed currency. Dr. Konate rushed into the office, beaming. Mr. President, it's incredible. Over 4 million people have already downloaded the app. That's nearly 20% of the population. Traoré smiled. Once people experience real freedom, they don't turn back. And there's more, she added. We're seeing downloads in Ghana, Congo, Senegal, across Africa. Everyone is watching. Days later, Traoré visited a small rural village. Residents had gathered around him, some curious, others still unsure. An old farmer looked at his phone and said softly, "Mr. President, I don't understand how to use this." Traoré sat beside him. "Let me help," he said gently. "This button opens your wallet. Here you can see your Burkina gold balance." The old man's eyes widened. "This is really mine? It has real value?" "Yes, it's your money, and no one can take it away. No foreign bank can freeze it. No government can block it. It's yours, completely." The farmer held the phone to his chest. "For the first time," he whispered, "I feel like my money is safe with me." That simple sentence proved what Traoré had known all along. This was about more than economics. It was about dignity, empowerment, and psychological freedom. Experts at the IMF had predicted that Burkina Faso wouldn't survive longer than a few weeks without Western financial systems. But 1 month passed, then 2. The economy didn't fall, it grew. Trade increased, people adjusted, hope returned. 3 months later, Traoré was invited to the BRICS summit in Moscow. Leaders from around the world gathered to hear what Burkina Faso had done. The Russian president commented, "You've brought back the gold standard, something the world abandoned decades ago." "We haven't gone back," Traoré replied. "We've moved forward. This is not old-fashioned gold. This is digital gold, backed by our resources, secured with modern technology. It's the future of freedom." The Chinese leader leaned in, intrigued. "Your digital wallet is impressive. It might offer an alternative to the global financial system." Following the summit, Traoré signed massive new partnerships: energy and defense with Russia, infrastructure and technology with China, agricultural cooperation with India, food security with Brazil, and education programs with Turkey. The Western media exploded with concern. Burkina Faso turns away from the West. The headlines screamed. But Traoré wasn't worried. As his plane flew back home, he turned to Dr. Konate and said, "We're not turning away from anyone. We're simply opening up to the whole world. We don't serve a master anymore. We have partners." He looked at his phone. The Burkina digital wallet was glowing on the screen. The data was astounding. 12 million active users, 2 million transactions a day, across 6 countries. No failures, no hacks. 6 months later, something even bigger happened. The Burkina gold evolved into African gold. 14 African nations had now adopted the system. The CFA franc, once the symbol of colonial control, faded into history. And Traoré? He had become more than a national leader. He was now the face of a continent rising. At the grand opening of Burkina Faso's new central bank, Traoré addressed a cheering crowd. Behind him stood giant vault doors. Inside, the country's gold, once locked away in Europe, now resting safely on home soil. "This isn't just a building," he said. "It's a new beginning. Our gold is finally where it belongs, in our land, under our control." Among the audience was a woman in tears, Thomas Sankara's widow. She shook Traoré's hand with emotion. "He would have been so proud," she said. "This is what he dreamed of, financial independence." Traoré held her hand and replied, "We've only come this far because he planted the seeds. We're just carrying his dream forward." Not far from the capital, at the new Burkina Technology Center, young engineers worked tirelessly. They were building the next version of the wallet, blockchain secured, energy efficient, and designed entirely by African developers. Burkina Faso hadn't just built a currency. It had created a complete economic and technological ecosystem, proudly African from start to finish. Back in Europe, the president of the IMF stood in front of cameras, smiling awkwardly. "We are in dialogue with Burkina Faso and its partners," she said. "We are reviewing their monetary system," which really meant we can't stop them anymore. Now we have to cooperate. France's president began touring Africa, promising a new chapter in relations. But few believed him. At a press conference, an African journalist asked him directly, "What do you think of the gold-backed currency system in West Africa?" The French leader forced a smile. "We respect their choices, of course, but I must warn of potential risks." Laughter erupted in the room before he could finish. A year after that first bold step, Traoré walked up to the United Nations podium. His speech was short, but it echoed with strength. A year ago, 6 countries dared to dream. Today, 22 African nations use the African gold. Our inflation is down, our trade is up, our technology sector is booming. Western diplomats shifted in their seats. "They told us we couldn't do it," Traoré said. "They told us we would fall. They said we'd starve." Then he smiled. "We said nothing. We just did it." The hall erupted in applause. For the first time in modern history, an African country had broken the chains of economic colonization, and it was just getting started.